Mr. Chairman, moving up Mammoth Road to Litchfield. It's a property we're all familiar with. And since 2006, it's been encumbered by a historic preservation easement. And that easement has provisions that restrict both what you can do with the property on the inside and what you can do with the property on the outside. The easements run in favor of the town of Londonderry, and there are a number of stakeholders identified in the document who have input or decision-making authority on various matters. While the easement may lack clarity as far as exactly who decides which questions, it is clear that the town council is driving the bus on this easement and has ultimate authority to act for the town. The purpose of this easement was historic preservation, and this parcel has not only the main structure but also the historic barn on it. Both are protected by this conservation easement. The property has gone through a different ownership and is now owned by someone who was not a party to creating the easement, but has owned the property for a number of years. And it should also be noted, Mr. Chairman, that when this parcel went into historic preservation, it also was placed or at around that time, it was also placed in the historic district. And so the Historic District Commission has jurisdiction to issue or not issue a certificate of authority to do certain things with respect to this building. While the purpose of this easement was historic preservation, the current owner has approached the town and indicated that some of the provisions in the easement are fairly onerous, giving different town boards and commissions authority with respect to changes that need to be made either inside or outside of the structure. The owner has also pointed out that there have been changes over the years, long before he acquired ownership, that have not exactly been in keeping with the historic features of the property. His obligation was to maintain the property at the same level of historic preservation, if you will, as when he acquired it. And after a recent inspection that was conducted by the Heritage Commission, it appears that he's done just that, and in fact he's put money into the property. However, he has approached the town indicating that the onerous restrictions that are currently encumbering the property are scaring off potential buyers and potential lessees. He has indicated that there have been numerous inquiries, and they all dry up after they see the terms of this easement. There was a discussion at the Heritage Commission recently at their most recent meeting where the results of the inspection were gone over. Councilor Butler was kind enough to be present for the inspection as a representative of the town. And I certainly don't want to speak for Councilor Butler, but I think that it might be worth hearing from him, Mr. Chairman, at some point tonight, given his expertise in this area and what he observed. I credit what Mr. Flyer is saying about the terms of this easement perhaps being detracting from the commercial viability of this structure. It is my view that you can't have historic preservation in this case without commercial viability. That is, not unless the town is willing to take over this property and spend a lot of money to preserve it. And so what I told the Heritage Commission, and it was echoed by both members of the board and Mr. Flyer, was that there is likely a way to soften some of these restrictions. In terms of the legal process that might be required, additional work would need to be done. But the town council is in the driver's seat here. And I am really looking for the council's view on what should occur here. If the council is open to looking at the terms of this agreement to make sure that they are achieving the purpose that we all set out on, which was historic preservation, then we can do that. I suggest it should take place in close consultation with the Heritage Commission, perhaps the Historical Society, and Town Legal Counsel. If the consensus of the council is, no, we're not interested in doing that, that's fine too. But it really is the council's decision at this point. I would note that Mr. Flyer is here. I think he's happy to answer any questions that the council might have. I believe I've summarized why this item is on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, I would just like to add some additional history. So in 2006, I was on the planning board. The owners of this property had a built-in swimming pool in the back, and they were a younger family, and they were trying to, they wanted to sell this home. They were trying to sell it for about $400,000. They weren't getting any buyers. So working with someone else in town, they decided to see if they can get it rezoned. This was the epitome of spot zoning. It came to the planning board through a couple of different meetings. The planning board voted 7-0 not to recommend rezoning, and that it was a violation of our ordinances and it was spot zoning. It came to the town council, and over a period of a couple of meetings, one town councilor was the real estate agent for the family that was trying to sell it. Another town councilor worked for the company that was trying to buy it, and they both stepped down. And it was approved for rezoning, again, over the objection of the public. Everybody wants you to listen to the public. They didn't listen to the public at that point. 2-1. It was then a number of things were supposed to happen. One, the pool was supposed to get filled in, which Mr. Flyer did, which was never done under the previous owner. And a number of the specs that were laid out to be done were not done. And I know that Mr. Flyer has brought those up to what they're supposed to be now. The letters that I've and actual emails and letters that I've received about this is, and actually recently from someone who does participate in the historic value of the community and everything is like, no, you should uphold this for the historic value that it is. It never should have been rezoned anyway. Another one called into multiple questions around profitability. Well, here in the United States of America, we're a capital, economy. I mean, people are allowed to make money. I don't know that we should be helping them, but I do understand what Mr. Flyer is saying from the standpoint of that there's a number of covenants on this. The covenants put on it were through the town council meeting and through their attorneys, because it was highly controversial to be doing this at that time, and it was very much strictly spot zoning, and the regulations were not followed. So that's how we got here. I know we're here now, but that's how we got here. As I recollect, I see Mr. Bouchard over here shaking his head up and down, and Mr. DeFrancisco, as they remember it the same way. So for the rest of you, that's how we got here. So it's, as he said, it's up to y'all what you want to do. I do know that Mr. Flyer has tried to bring in multiple different companies here. The latest one I remember was a bank. Our past town attorney just didn't see any legal remedy here at that time. I mean, so I don't know if there is or there is not one now, but our past town attorney did not really see a legal remedy. So with that, I'll be quiet. It's up to you all.
I have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
Just a couple. So is the gentleman, Mr. Flyer, trying to sell the property, correct?
I think that's one potential option. I think he's
Okay.
also talking to people who might lease the property from him.
Right. So right now, the town has it assessed at $342,100, but it's currently listed at $499,000. So the market is telling the current owner that the price is too high, is the way I look at it. So I think as a council, we shouldn't be up here basically saying a private landowner, we shouldn't be doing that. A private, the market's telling him it's too high, he needs to lower his price. So maybe if the price comes down to 400,000, someone would sell it and be with the restrictions. I just don't think that we as a government body should be.
Ron, I'll
business
beg to
of-
differ with you on that.
Okay, I just don't think we should
The
be in the
town will
business.
assess my home at one value, and it'll sell for a completely different
Right.
value from what the town assesses at. What the town assessments are at are completely irrelevant for what
You
someone
may
can
not be
sell it
saying
at.
that next year since
No.
they're doing a reassessment.
I just don't think we should be in the business of deciding what the market believes.
So I guess the question really posed to us is, and I take
Yeah.
point, that's a good point. I think what they're asking us is, I think we as the leaders of the community are now put in a position of that we could have a property that does have some historic value in which, and I'm not a barn expert, but I would say the barn probably is in need of repair. If we continue to let this property sit as it is, it will do nothing but deteriorate. So do we as a council want to adjust the rules to enable someone to invest in the property and for it not to deteriorate? I think that's the question we're being asked. And I'm not saying that we should do it, but I think that's the question we're being asked.
Mr. Chair?
And we don't have to decide tonight.
I think it's too early in the process to make the decision. Let the market decide. If he can't sell it at 400,000 or he can't sell it at something less than that, then maybe it is a government body issue. But I think right now the market's saying it's too high. So that's my opinion.
Ted's waiting.
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
So, can I ask the town manager a quick
course.
question? So is this actually on the registry of deeds as a historic property with the state and the feds?
I can't speak for if it's on a register anywhere, but what I can tell you is as a matter of a recording in the registry of deeds, there's a historic preservation restriction that's attached to it.
But it's not actually registered as a historic property?
I haven't seen anywhere that that's the case. Now, I could be proven wrong, but to the best of my knowledge,
Right.
I am not aware of it being registered anywhere as historic.
Okay, and as I read also this document,
And I should, there is a state database that has an inventory of historic properties, that identifies potentially historic properties. I don't know if this property is on that database, but we can certainly find that out.
so as well as I read this, this document is extremely limiting for anyone who owns it, whether it be for residential or for commercial purposes. And for anyone to be able to purchase this, it extremely limits you to be able to improve the property at all beyond what it's currently at and potentially collapsing as it is, to even keep it as a historical value. There's an extreme limitation on this document. So, Ron, for anyone to actually want to buy this, it would be a waste of their money because you cannot even improve the property from what the limitations are, if you've read the document.
But keep in mind, Ted, the current owner of the property bought it knowing these restrictions. So that's why I'm saying the market needs to decide what's going to happen here. I don't think we as a government body should be deciding that. When the purchase was made, these restrictions were on the purchase, correct?
Yes,
That's how the property was purchased.
that's correct.
So knowing these restrictions are on the property, then you shouldn't have bought the property. Why are we as a government body deciding what the free market can do? That's all I'm saying to you.
We
is-
should be involved in the free market.
I think you're missing the point here. I met with Mr. Flyer and inspected the property. I can tell you the barn, the roof is ready to cave in, the sills are rotted, and there were a couple of members that wouldn't even walk into the barn because that's the type of condition it was. They thought I was crazy to walk into it. So, he's done some things to the barn to try to help it out. With regards to the house, he has put in money. He did take down the fencing. He did fill in the pools. If you take a look at the historical significance, all those windows are not the original windows. They were replaced, I think, with a vinyl, Richard, or aluminum siding windows. So that whole historic perspective is gone. I've gone into the cellar. Water runs through the cellar. There's rot in the cellar with the sills. So it's not a question of how much he can sell it. The real estate agent was with us, and we sat down with the real estate agent. He has had a law firm look, a dentist, I believe, look, and several other people look, but looking at the condition of the house and looking at the restrictions, they all ran. Well, I'm not gonna say they all ran, but they all declined because they can't do anything with it. They can't do anything with it. So I think, and it's not a question how much he wants to sell it for. I think that it's prudent for us to sit and see if we can change, I don't know if we can or not, the deed or the covenants, to see if we can make it a little easier, so when these people come in and look at the house, regardless of the price, that when they look at the covenants, they can work with it. Right now, I wouldn't buy it. What are you gonna do with it?
Right, so
And I totally agree with you, Ron. You know, he did buy it and the covenant was there. He's made the attempt, he has cleaned up the property, he's trying to sell it, and the sellers are going, I'm not gonna touch that because of the covenant. So I think that we should try to help by seeing if we can change the covenant to loosen it up, to stop scaring people from coming to buy it. Or you know what's gonna happen? He can board it up and it'll rot.
so I don't,
That's what's gonna happen
Mr.
with the
Butler,
property.
do you know when the windows were installed?
That I don't know. I mean,
Can
my
we
issue,
ask
Jim, is
the
that as
landowner
a
when the
government
windows were
body,
installed?
are we in the business of protecting somebody that bought something they shouldn't have purchased, is my question, you know?
Well,
Is that what we do? The free market should decide that, not us.
it has nothing to do with the price.
Okay.
It has to do with the covenants.
So if he couldn't, so,
I mean, someone's looking at that and saying, hey, he could try to sell it for 200,000, and they're gonna look at it and say, oh my God, what can we do with it?
I disagree with you.
Oh,
I've got
okay.
somebody
Mr.
buy the
Chairman.
property at $300,000.
You have someone who'll buy the property at 300,000?
I'm just saying that if, you have to let the market decide, is all I'm saying is, you gotta give it a chance, let the process flow through.
He has been giving it a chance.
But-
He's had people take a
But it's
look
listed
at
at
it.
500,000.
I'm sorry, I stepped out for a minute.
No.
I noticed Mr. Flyer is up here
No.
at the
Yeah,
at the
why
podium.
don't we listen to Mr. Flyer?
Well, I mean, you know, are you guys okay with
So
listening to
I have
him?
one comment before we go to Mr. Flyer.
Okay.
These windows, I believe, were put in by the prior owner of the property, and I'm trying to acquire when they were actually put in.
Please, all right?
I'm trying to acquire when that was put in. Do we know when those windows were put in? And at that point, as well, that would have voided this document, right? Do we know when those windows were put in by anyone?
So,
I don't know.
are these supposed to be thermopane windows or something?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
They're
Well,
not the
I-
original.
I'm-
How do the
I'm-
windows have any
I can tell
historical
you,
reference?
Somebody can probably go out there, look up the brand and look up the model on it and figure out when the windows were made, and we can figure that out. Okay, so Mr. Flyer, I'm sorry, I stepped out to use the men's room. Did you want to say something?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't going to, but I was listening to Mr. Dunn.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could be more incorrect in your assumptions.
Okay.
You didn't study it. A couple of the whole historic commission, or what is it called?
Heritage Commission.
Heritage Commission did. They sent 2 representatives over there. When we got involved with the property and took it over, it was pretty trashed, completely trashed. They came and some people, even the chair of your council came and took a look and took the pictures. We have a property that can't be leased to a quality tenant. There's no insulation in the building. Half of the building inside, and I don't know if this works or not, okay.
That's better, thank you.
Half of the building, half of the building inside is one floor, doesn't really have a floor. It's a bouncy vinyl thing. Another room is totally devoid of any historical history or artifacts. Upstairs, half of the house has been, there are newish bathrooms put in, I don't know when, but maybe 10 years ago, 15, I don't know. But the rooms and the floors and what's been done there is not historical. That building right now would not be qualified by any official historical party. Now, I believe that this is an unusual property, and I think it's the town's problem as well as mine. And that's why I went to the commission, and that's why they got involved. I've restored over 1 million square feet of historical property during my career. And I think we've done a good job with another property here in town in terms of restoring it. In this case, the quality companies can pay rent. If you put a company in that is marginal, they're going to turn over very quickly. So a couple of years ago, I went and before I forgot what the other board was. Heritage, the appeals, where I went to
The ZBA.
ZBA to see if I could use it for residential, because that prohibited it at the moment. And I went through the whole process, and they voted yes. They voted to give a variance, not a variance,
If it was the ZBA, it would have been a variance.
variance. So that existed. We just didn't follow through on that because the Democratic Party moved in. And they were available and they needed it. So we let them lease it. And they leased it for the last 5 or 6 years, I guess. But when somebody comes to buy the property at any price, and I don't talk about your money, but I guess in a case like this, you can say that I bought it and it had that agreement attached to it, but that agreement wasn't really put together in a business-like way. It was done in a way that made it so nothing could be done. If you've ever rehabbed a property to that degree, you always find things wrong with it, with an older property. You never know what you're going to find, but it usually is far more than you expected. In this case, we've been having so many things that we didn't expect, and they're right in front of our face. The building underneath the clapboards is wet and rotting. We've painted it 2 times, and it's as if it just doesn't take, and we've taken boards off and seen the rotting there. So that building will not last unless somebody really does something with it. We could just board it up and put it into an inventory, and that wouldn't really help anybody. The town wouldn't be getting any taxes. And by the way, the tax amount that was there, that I'm being taxed for, was lowered. It was lowered to that when the assessor went through the property with his assistant and took a look at what existed there as a building. And he's dead now, so you can't get a hold of him.
But what you're telling me is proving my point.
No, I'm not.
Is because all I'm saying is we need to let the market decide this first.
The market won't buy it. Nobody will buy the property. You're not.
Have you
listening.
tried? Put the
Yeah.
property at $350,000 and see if
It's
it'll
not
sell.
a matter of that. That agreement doesn't look.
I'm just saying.
Well, you know
So
what you're-
we
you-
probably don't want to have that.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying. That's.
You're not. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He's not
sorry.
correct.
I understand, he's engaging. you,
I
understand.
apologize
Yeah.
if I wasn't.
No,
supposed to engage.
that's
I'll,
okay.
I'll
but-
engage with him, but I'm just a little bit.
Well, that's
I
fine.
just don't think you know what you haven't done your homework. You really haven't.
Okay, well, Mr. Flyer,
the-
I respect what everybody's saying, everything. Let's try not to do that.
Okay.
Let me ask the town manager a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Has Ms. Carrier looked at this covenant?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Ramsdell retired, and we are working with, on the land use pieces, we're working with attorney Megan Carrier. What I'm going to ask the council is that perhaps what we can do is have Ms. Carrier take a look at this agreement and see what her point of view is, and then see what she thinks.
Okay.
And she's, she looks at it differently. I don't know. I'm only getting to know her. So, and see if she sees something that Mr. Ramsdell didn't see. Because Mr. Ramsdell saw what you saw. There was no other use for the property.
Right. But I would just want you to understand,
I understand,
and the
okay.
gentleman, the other, Mr. Dunn, that if you don't have a quality tenant, you'll get a low rent. That's great. Right now, the building costs, since you're interested in the dollars, the building costs about $4,000 a month at this point to maintain, but there's a lot that has to be done to it. We're at a point where when we took out the pool, we didn't bury it, we took it out. It was a very expensive process. And it had to be taken out, not buried, in that case. Insurance companies would not insure the building unless it was taken out. And it was a real danger to the kids in the neighborhood. It wasn't safe, it wasn't ever fully protected properly. It was just waiting for somebody to drown in it. And the insurance company wouldn't take that liability, nor would I. Secondly, in terms of what has to be done by a tenant, they've got to be able to go in and insulate the walls, do things with the heating and air conditioning to make it a modern space that somebody would rent. The companies that looked at it were more than interested in renting it, and several have been interested and wanted to have it for a price. But when their attorneys looked at that agreement, they wouldn't let anybody touch it.
So, Mr. Sheriff, I think I heard you correctly. You directed the town manager to look at the easement or the abate.
So,
the covenant.
I think the request coming before the council is that will you consider re-looking at the covenants of the property? What I'm suggesting to the council is that before we reconsider looking at the covenants of it, we ask Ms. Carrier, who's our new land use attorney, for her point of view on it. We can look all we want, but if Ms. Carrier says that, okay, well, laws have changed and you can do X, Y, and Z, Ms. Carrier may turn around and she may say, no, there's really just nothing you can do with this. Based on the history and everything else, this is all you can do. This is the best you're gonna get. Then the question that becomes before the council is how important is it to the council that the historic value, of which there appears to be very little, but the surface, the visual historic value to the community, what is that worth? And then the council has to make a decision on whether or not that has a certain amount of value, and then work with the landowner to make sure that we continue to have that value here in the community. Or, it will stay the way it is. I mean, I don't know where else to go with it. Those are the options that I can think of at the moment.
I wanted to bring one more thing to your mind.
I would agree with you. I mean, I think there's just a lot of information that we don't have right now at this time. And I think if we were to make a decision other than seek counsel, I think that it would probably be inappropriate for us to move forward in that regards.
So with regards to this property, Mr. Flyer, what I think we would have to do is the process, if we were to do anything and move profit, we would have to go through a public hearing process. We'd have to look at whether it's rezoning or whether we're redoing the covenant. I don't know exactly what the process is, but it's gonna need to be something that comes out and we get input on, depending on what Ms. Carrier says to us.
Okay, I just want you all to know that the historic group voted, everyone voted, to try to revise it. They did their homework, they listened to the issues. I invited them to work with us. I think it's a town treasure in terms of visibility. I agree with that. However, the town doesn't want to pay any money to renovate it or keep it that way. But with the way that agreement is written, the town controls the destiny, not me. Whether that can be changed or not, I don't know. But if it can be, the town controls that.
Yeah.
And if that pool had remained as it was there, with that agreement, and I'm talking in front of an attorney, but I do believe the town would have been liable if somebody drowned in it just as much as I and my partners would be.
Well, great minds will
Yeah.
agree to disagree. But,
Well, I
that's,
can
but
tell you
we're-
now, that's why we boarded
we're
up
not
the
gonna-
barn.
the good news is the pool's not there.
Yeah, but the
so
barn and house
What
are.
I think I'm asking the council for a commitment to seek legal counsel to find out, what we can and we cannot do. And I really think that's probably the best the council can offer at this point, is to take it under consideration and to look at it and come back to you. I do want to remind you, and I know that you're aware of this, that, there is the Mack family home property that was offered to the town to buy. After an inspection and the amount of work that would have to be done with it, the town took a pass. So we do value these homes here in the community and everything, and we'll endeavor to try to figure out whether there's a solution or not. But I don't want you to think we're making any promises. What I will say is we'll ask for help.
Okay. Well,
Is that
there's
okay?
There's an issue of timing. We've lost for 4 months the ability to rent it,
Okay?
the ability to sell it at any price. And we've listened to everybody, but I guarantee to you that any attorney that's read that agreement has not let their client near the property after it was written.
Do we think we can get this on Ms. Carrier's calendar this week and have her take a look at it?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, we're meeting with her tomorrow, actually.
Oh, see, timing's great.
Timing's everything.
I just don't want to board it up.
So they're meeting with her tomorrow. So I guess we'll add that to the agenda.
That's exciting. Good to hear. But if you can come up with some solutions, forget about Max. That's a palace compared to the condition of this house. And you could live in Max right away. It's
As you're well
livable.
aware, I've been inside to Litchfield, so I understand.
Yeah. And you came out safe, but we're concerned, and it needs everything. So
Thank
could
you,
spend
sir.
$1 million on that property, and finally it would be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Flyer.
Thank you.